Once upon a time, in a distant land called Eldoria, there lived a wicked king named Ravanor. His rule was marked by cruelty and greed. He cared for no one but himself, and he believed that everything in the world, trees, animals, rivers, and people, existed only to serve him. He was never satisfied with what he had. His eyes were always fixed on more power, more riches, more land. At the edge of Eldoria lay a mysterious and ancient forest known as the Forest of Shadows. It was said to be enchanted, a place where nature thrived in its purest form, guarded by spirits and magical creatures. The people of Eldoria feared the forest. They spoke of it in hushed whispers, warning children never to stray too close. The forest was wild, untamed, and the magic it held was beyond the understanding of any mortal. But to King Ravanor, the forest was nothing but an obstacle. He saw it as a barrier between him and his ultimate goal, to rule the entire kingdom and beyond. He believed that the power of nature should bow to him, just like his people did. So, one day, he summoned his advisors and declared his intention to conquer the forest. "I will build a magnificent palace right at the edge of the Forest of Shadows," the king said. "I will tame this land and make it yield to my will. No longer will I be bound by the ancient magic of this cursed place." His advisors trembled with fear. "Sire, the forest is not to be disturbed," one of them warned. "The spirits within it are powerful. If you anger them, the consequences will be dire." But King Ravanor was stubborn and proud. He paid no heed to their warnings. He ordered his soldiers to gather axes, saws, and other tools, ready to cut down the trees that had stood for centuries. "I will show you all that nothing is beyond my control," he said. "Not even magic itself." And so, the soldiers ventured into the forest, cutting down its ancient trees with abandon. As they walked, the air grew thick with an eerie fog, and the shadows of the trees seemed to stretch and twist in unnatural ways. But still, the men pressed on, too afraid of the king's wrath to stop. The forest, however, was not so easily defeated. The deeper the men went, the stranger the forest became. Strange noises filled the air, whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, strange shapes that flickered in the corner of their eyes. Yet they continued, cutting and hacking at the trees, believing that they could bend the forest to their will. That night, as the work continued under the pale light of the moon, a deep, earth-shaking roar echoed from within the forest. The ground trembled beneath the king's castle, and the sky above darkened as though a storm was approaching. The people of Eldoria gathered in the town square, fearful of the strange events unfolding around them. Then, in the dead of night, a figure appeared at the gates of the castle. She was cloaked in shadows, her face hidden beneath a veil of mist. Her eyes shone with an otherworldly light, and the air around her seemed to hum with magic. She was the guardian of the forest, an ancient spirit who protected the land and all its creatures. "You have angered the heart of the forest, King Ravanor," the guardian's voice echoed like the wind rustling through the trees. "The forest is not to be tamed. It is older than you, and its magic is beyond your understanding." The king, sitting on his throne, laughed arrogantly. "I fear no spirit, no magic," he sneered. "I am the ruler of this land. I am the one who commands the power of life and death. You cannot stop me." The guardian's eyes narrowed. "You have made a grave mistake. The forest will not forgive your greed." With a wave of her hand, the ground beneath the castle began to shake violently. The trees of the Forest of Shadows, once still and silent, began to twist and rise as if alive. Their branches creaked and groaned, reaching toward the castle like fingers eager to grab hold. The fog thickened, and the skies turned a deep shade of black. From within the depths of the forest, shadowy creatures began to emerge. They were not like anything the king's soldiers had ever seen, beasts with glowing eyes and dark, twisted forms. Their roars echoed through the night, and they surrounded the castle, blocking any escape. The king's soldiers drew their weapons, but their swords passed through the creatures as if they were made of smoke. Fear gripped the hearts of the men. The guardian stood before the king, her eyes piercing him with a look that seemed to see through him. "Your greed and arrogance have sealed your fate, Ravanor. The forest magic will not be denied. It will reclaim what you have stolen." The king fell to his knees, his arrogance gone, replaced by fear. Please, I beg of you, he pleaded. I was blind with greed. I never meant to cause harm. Spare my kingdom and my people. I will never try to control nature again. The guardian's expression softened for a brief moment, but her voice remained firm. The forest magic is ancient, and its power is not easily undone. I will show mercy, but you will pay for your transgressions. With a wave of her hand, the storm subsided. The creatures of the forest retreated, vanishing into the shadows from which they had come. The guardian's voice rang out one last time, you will never rule again, King Ravanor. You will remain here, bound to the forest for as long as it stands. Before the king could respond, a powerful force took hold of him. His body began to change, his skin hardening like bark, his arms twisting into roots. His crown, once a symbol of his power, was transformed into a nest for ravens. King Ravanor was no more. Instead, a great tree stood in his place, its branches reaching toward the sky, its roots tangled deep in the earth. The people of Eldoria watched in awe and fear, for they had witnessed the fall of their king. The guardian turned to them and spoke, the forest will never be tamed. It will always protect itself and the balance of nature. Remember this lesson, for it is the last mercy you will receive. The guardian vanished, and the forest returned to its natural state. The people rebuilt their lives, and Eldoria flourished once again. But the tale of King Ravanor lived on, passed down from generation to generation, a story of greed, arrogance, and the power of nature that no one could ever control. And so, the Forest of Shadows remained a place of mystery, its magic untouched by human hands, a reminder to all that nature must be respected and never sought to be controlled. And in the heart of the forest, the tree that was once King Ravanor stood silently, a warning to anyone who would dare to challenge the power of the earth.